Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. In this video I'm going to give you guys an update on my Frangipani tree here. As you can see, it's really grown very large now. It's probably well over 6 foot now. It's getting, I think, just past 2 meters in height, so it's really quite a tall tree. But as you can see, it's really outgrown my living room now. Unfortunately, it's really starting to block a lot of light from the window now, and that's restricting some of the growth from the other plants that I have in my room at the moment. So what I'm going to have to do is give it a hard prune so that it doesn't take up so much space, but also because if it does grow for another year, you can see where it grew to last year, and that's where it started branching. That's because it started to grow flower buds last year and it branched. You see it grew at least a foot this year. If it grows another foot this year, those top branches are going to be higher than the window, and once they get that height, they're not going to really get any light, so it's going to suffer. But also I'm not going to have any space in my living room because it's going to get to be such a large tree. So I need to give it a hard cut. But in order to give it a hard cut, I need to make it go dormant. So what I've been doing is really holding back on the water. I've been watering it very seldomly. I actually let it wilt quite a lot before I water it. That way it's stressing the plant, making it want to go dormant. And you can see that a lot of the leaves are going yellow now. It did have a huge amount more leaves than this. The whole thing was absolutely covered in leaves probably about a month ago. You can see this stem here is almost finished. It's nearly lost all its leaves. But you can imagine the leaves were from the tip all the way down to last year's growth, completely covered. So it was a lot darker than it is now in this room. It was really covering a lot more of the window and causing a lot less light to come in. And although it's been doing quite well this year, it hasn't had the same kind of issues with thrips and stuff that I've had in previous summers. Now it has started to have an effect. Now it's autumn time. And unfortunately, I've actually discovered my arch nemesis when it comes to garden pests, and that is the red spider mite. I have actually got red spider mite now in this plant, and I find red spider mite really hard to get rid of. And I've had it before in a flat in a house I was living in previously, and I could never eradicate it. It was always around some of the plants, and it caused a lot of damage. So I'm quite annoyed to find that I've got it here. I don't know how it came into the flat. I don't know if it came in through the window, or sometimes when I notice when I buy peppers from the shops, there's sometimes a little bit of red spider mite on the peppers, so possibly that's come off that. But I don't have any peppers, like shop bought peppers in this room. It's only in the kitchen, so I don't know why it would be this plant that's got it. But as I say, red spider mite is a really nasty pest to try and get rid of. It's just so small, you can't really see it until you've got a bad infestation. It's moderately bad in this plant at the moment. Still, I can't really show it because it's as I say, it's really like invisible. It's so small you can't really see it unless it gets really bad, and then you can see the webbing from the pest. I think there's a little bit up here on the top of this climber. See if I can focus in. As I say, it's a hard thing to show on a camera because it is so small. But you can see there. You can see them running along on the webs that they've made. Try and get a little bit closer for you. There you are. You can see them running along on the webs. That's unfortunate because this will be harder to get them off this vine than it will be to get them off the Frangipani. And I've also got quite a lot of thrips as well. See if I can find a couple of thrips for you to see. So there's another red spider mite there. You can see it's red colour, kind of giving it away. Just on the edge of the leaf there. See if there's any thrips. So we've got a thrip here, and you can see the thrip damage. The thrip damage is basically that mottling effect. The little yellow creature there is a thrip, and if I touch it with my fingernail now, you'll see it start moving. You'll see that it's definitely a little animal. There you are. So as I say, really bad infestation starting to materialize. So what I'm going to do is normally I let it keep its leaves all winter long. I just keep it in a warm position, plenty of light, with lots of water and feed, and it keeps its leaves no problem. But because this year I need to prune it hard, I need to get it to go dormant so there's not too much sap, and it's less of a stress on the plant if it pours all its energy back into its stems instead of having them in the leaves. Because if I do give this a hard prune, there won't be any leaves left on it. If it goes from suddenly having loads of leaves to none, it'll be quite a stress. But if I make it lose its leaves naturally, it won't have any left on the plant, and that way when I do give it a hard prune, it's not going to be as stressed. Also, getting rid of these pests, because you see how many leaves there are, such a big surface area, it's going to be very difficult to get every single one. But if I make all the leaves fall off, most of the pests are just going to die from starvation, to be honest. or frost if I leave the leaves outside. Plus I can gather up the leaves and throw them away. So what I'm going to do to really make sure this drops its leaves, I'm going to put it outside. It's probably close to freezing at night at the moment and only about 10 degrees in the day. That's going to be quite a stress for this plant, but it'll make sure it drops the leaves really fast, and it'll also help kill off some of the bugs, especially the red spider mite. Red spider mite does really well in dry conditions, and as my flat is now getting quite dry because it's coming into winter time, the heating is on, the red spider mites are only going to get much worse. So what I'm going to have to do, put it outside. Red spider mites should die off. They don't normally survive very well in the UK. It's too damp and too cold for them, so they'll hopefully die off. Thrips might survive outside, but as I say, there won't be anything for them to eat for a long time because it'll be winter time. And there are actually a few aphids as well on this Frangipani, but the aphids, I find they don't become a major pest on the Frangipani. I don't think they do very well in the sap. I think the latex sap isn't very good for the aphids, so they do reproduce, but they don't become thousands and thousands of aphids that you find in other plants. I always find 1 or 2 aphids on here, but they're never a major issue. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move this outside. I'll lose all its leaves, and as I say, I'll give you guys an update when I do give it a hard prune. I'm going to prune this really quite hard, I think, this time. So it's a bit of a shame because I just put this new Madagascan jasmine up here. That isn't supposed to go deciduous, so that will suffer, and I'm not sure what I'm going to have to do with that because there's going to be a lot of red spider mite on that, and I want to eradicate the red spider mite, so I might have to cut that back hard, just make sure there's no red spider mite left on this pot and these 2 plants. So I'm going to cut this back, probably this stem down to about this level, main stem also to about the windowsill level, and these 2, I might leave the smallest one, but this one that's branched is also going to be cut down to about the height of the windowsill. That way when it grows up, it'll be coming into light straight away. If I cut it lower down, well, I'd lose most of the tree, and also it'll be lower than the light level of the windowsill, so it wouldn't do as well. If I cut it higher up, it just means that I'm going to have to cut it again in a couple of years' time. So the idea of cutting it back really hard is that it won't need cutting for probably another 3 or 4 years, which will be good, and hopefully in 3 or 4 years' time, the plant will be mature enough with the new stems that it will actually flower. So I've only had 1 flower bud this year. As I said, last year I had 2. So you can see that's why this main branch started to branch into 3, as did this one. When they start growing flower buds, the terminal growth stops and they sprout out new branches to make up for the lack of the terminal bud. So you can just about see there is a dead flower bud that never matured. And this year, this stem on the right did actually produce a flower bud, but it was just too late in the year. As you can see, it's absolutely covered the shoot in red spider mite. Really bad infestation. Red spider mites like to go to the youngest part of the growth if they can. That's where the nutrients and the sap is. So as you can see, there is actually a flower bud there, but it's not going to come to anything. It's too late now, and with this infestation, it's not going to do very well. So yep, I'll give you guys an update once it's lost all its leaves, and I'll be doing a final prune of it.